Hello, Jules. Welcome to the Fishbowl with Jade. I'm your host, Ms. Mills, and I'm honored that you've chosen to spend a little time with me today. Before we begin our conversation, let's do what we always do. Grab your scuba gear, tighten your mask, check your oxygen tank, because we're about to leave the surface behind. Why scuba gear? Because the surface only tells part of the story. On the surface are headlines, opinions, assumptions, and quick reactions. But beneath the surface is where understanding lives. It's where context matters, perspectives expand, and meaningful conversations begin. That's where we're going today. Here in the Fishbowl, we don't judge people. We examine ideas. We don't chase controversy. We pursue understanding. We don't have to agree with one another to learn from one another. Every episode is an invitation to think a little deeper, listen a little closer, and leave with a perspective you may not have considered before. So, Jules, take a deep breath because we're about to descend beneath the surface. Welcome to the Fishbowl with Jade. Let's dive in. There has been so much conversation surrounding an ongoing case on social media. And before we go any further, I want to say something that I believe is important. I think investigations deserve the opportunity to unfold. I believe law enforcement should have the time and space to gather facts, interview witnesses, analyze evidence, and do the work they were trained to do before the rest of us decide what happened. At the same time, we also live in a world where people naturally discuss current events. They ask questions, they share opinions, they offer theories. Sometimes those conversations help bring awareness to cases that otherwise may not have received the attention they needed. We've seen social media shine a light on missing persons, generate tips, and keep families' stories in front of the public. So today isn't about criticizing people for having conversations, nor is it about adding more speculation to an investigation that is still ongoing. Instead, I want to use the conversation that's already happening to explore something much bigger. I want to talk about friendship. I want to talk about responsibility. I want to talk about what we owe the people we call our friends. Because once all the headlines disappear and social media moves on to the next story, that question will still remain. One phrase keeps appearing over and over again whenever people discuss situations where friends are out together. If we came together, we should leave together. At first, it sounds simple. It almost sounds like common sense. But the more I thought about those words, the more complicated they became. Life doesn't always present us with simple situations. What happens when everyone is ready to leave except one person? What happens when that one friend says, "You all go ahead, I'm staying"? What happens when that friend is a grown adult who has every legal and personal right to make that decision? Do you stay because you're their friend? Do you leave because you respect their independence? Do you try to convince them? Do you argue? Do you check back later? Do you text? Do you call? Suddenly, what seemed like a simple statement becomes one of the most difficult questions friendship can ask. That's why I don't want today's conversation to become about one case. I want it to become about all of us, because every one of us has either been the friend who wanted to stay, the friend who wanted to leave, or the friend trying to decide what the right thing to do was. The more I thought about friendship, the more I realized we use that word so freely that we rarely stop to define it. We call people our friends because we laugh together, because we work together, because we grew up together, because we travel together, because we enjoy spending time together. But is friendship simply proximity, or is it responsibility? Is friendship measured by how much fun we have together, or by what we do when the fun is over? Is friendship just sharing experiences, or is it making sure the people we care about make it home safely? I don't know if there's one definition that fits everyone, but I do know that every friendship operates on expectations that are rarely discussed. Some people believe friendship means complete loyalty. Others believe friendship means respecting each other's independence. Some believe friends should always stay together. Others believe adults make adult decisions and those decisions belong to them. The interesting thing is that many of us never discuss those expectations until something happens that forces us to. When we were children, adults taught us something called the buddy system. We heard it on field trips, at amusement parks, at summer camps, around swimming pools, and while walking through crowded places. Stay with your buddy. Nobody thought those instructions were controlling. Nobody accused adults of taking away our independence. Everyone understood there was safety in looking out for one another. Then something interesting happened as we grew older. Somewhere along the way, we replaced stay with your buddy with they're grown. We started believing adulthood somehow eliminated our need for people to check on us. But did it really? Or did adulthood simply change what looking out for one another should look like? Because I don't believe becoming an adult means we stop needing community. I think it means we learn how to balance independence with accountability. I can respect your decisions while still caring enough to know whether you made it home. Those two things don't have to compete. Speaking from my own experience as a woman, there are certain things many women do almost without thinking about them. We go to the ladies' room together. We watch each other's purses. We remind one another not to leave drinks unattended. If someone walks away from a drink and comes back intending to finish it, another woman will often say, "No, ma'am, you're not drinking that." We wait while someone calls an Uber. We walk one another to our cars. We often wait until headlights pull away before we leave ourselves. Those habits didn't develop because women wanted to control each other. They developed because life taught many women to think about safety in ways that became second nature. Now, I can't speak for men because I'm not a man, but I do wonder if men have their own version of those unwritten rules. Do men check on one another differently? Have we unintentionally taught men that independence means handling everything alone? Have we mistaken concern for weakness? I don't know the answer, and that's why I think this conversation belongs to all of us instead of one particular group. I also think we need to make an important distinction. Looking out for someone is not the same thing as controlling someone. Those are two completely different things. Friendship doesn't give us ownership over another adult. We can't force someone into our car. We can't make every decision for them. We can't physically stop another adult from making choices they have every right to make. But maybe friendship asks something different. Maybe friendship asks us not to become indifferent simply because someone made a choice we wouldn't have made ourselves. Maybe it asks us to send one more text, make one more phone call, wait for one more response, circle back one more time. There's a difference between respecting someone's decision and forgetting about them altogether. Caring doesn't end simply because agreement does. One of the questions I kept asking myself while preparing for today's conversation was, what if your friend refuses to leave? Because that's where these conversations become real. It's easy to create rules when everyone agrees. It's much harder when they don't. Imagine 6 friends go out together. 5 are ready to call it a night, and one person says, "I'm staying." What happens next? Do all 5 stay because one person wants to remain? Does one friend volunteer to stay behind? Does everyone leave because that individual is an adult capable of making their own decisions? Do you spend 30 minutes trying to convince them to come with you? What if they become frustrated and tell you to stop treating them like a child? What if they assure you they're perfectly fine? What if they tell you they're meeting someone else? What if they say they'll call a ride share later? Those are real situations that happen every single day. That's why I don't believe there is one answer that solves every circumstance. Life is too complicated for one rule to fit every situation. But I do believe there are questions worth asking before we simply walk away. Do you have a safe ride? Is your phone charged? Do you have someone with you? Will you text me when you get home? If I don't hear from you by a certain time, is it okay if I call? Those questions don't take away someone's freedom. They simply communicate something every human being deserves to hear. I care enough to make sure you're okay. As I continued thinking about this, I realized something else. Friendship is built long before the moment a difficult decision has to be made. We often believe friendship is tested in a crisis, but I think it's actually built in the ordinary moments. It's built in the consistency of checking in. It's built in returning phone calls. It's built in showing up when you say you're going to show up. It's built in the conversations that let someone know they're valued long before they ever need help. Because if we only become intentional when something goes wrong, we've already missed countless opportunities to strengthen the relationship beforehand. Healthy friendships create cultures of care. They create environments where checking on one another doesn't feel strange because it's simply what everyone has always done. Psychologists have studied something called the bystander effect. and I think it deserves a place in this conversation because it helps explain something many people don't even realize they're doing. The bystander effect suggests that when many people are present, each individual often assumes someone else will step in. Responsibility becomes divided among the group. One person thinks someone else made the phone call. Someone else believes another friend already checked in. Another assumes everyone must be fine because no one else seems concerned. Before long, everyone believes someone else has taken responsibility, and sometimes that means no one actually has. That doesn't automatically make people uncaring. It makes them human. Our minds naturally spread responsibility across groups. That's why I think it's so important to become intentional instead of assumptive. Don't assume someone else made the call. Be the one who makes it. Don't assume someone else checked. Be the one who checks. Sometimes one simple decision changes everything. Technology has also changed the way we think about friendship. Years ago, if someone left, there was often no way to contact them until they arrived home. Today, almost everyone carries a phone. We can text, call, video chat, share our location, and communicate almost instantly. Some people think location sharing is unnecessary. Others think it's one of the greatest safety tools we've ever had. I don't believe technology should replace trust, but I do believe it can support care. If two friends decide to share their locations while traveling or during a night out, that doesn't necessarily mean one is controlling the other. It may simply mean they've chosen another way to look out for each other. Every friendship has to decide what works for them, but I don't think we should automatically dismiss tools that can help us stay connected. The question isn't whether technology exists. The question is how we choose to use it. Another thought crossed my mind while preparing this episode. I wonder if we've confused privacy with isolation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with respecting another person's privacy. Healthy boundaries matter, but respecting privacy shouldn't prevent us from showing concern. There is a difference between asking someone where they are every 5 minutes and simply saying, I wanted to make sure you got home safely. One comes from control, the other comes from compassion. We have to be careful not to confuse the two, because if we become so afraid of appearing intrusive that we stop checking on the people we love, we may unintentionally create friendships where everyone is technically independent but emotionally disconnected. I also believe this conversation has something to teach us about communication. Maybe before the evening even begins, friends should have conversations they rarely think about having. Who's driving? Who's staying sober? What's the plan if someone wants to leave early? What's our meeting place if we become separated? If someone's phone dies, what's our backup plan? We spend so much time planning where we're going that we sometimes forget to plan how we're getting home. Preparation isn't fear, it's wisdom. It's no different than wearing a seatbelt. We don't put on seatbelts because we expect an accident. We wear them because we understand life is unpredictable. Good planning isn't pessimism, it's responsibility. I also think we need to be honest enough to admit that there are moments when friendship becomes uncomfortable. Sometimes the people we care about make decisions we don't agree with. Sometimes they ignore our advice. Sometimes they become frustrated because they feel we're interfering. That's part of friendship too. Caring doesn't guarantee agreement. Looking out for someone doesn't guarantee they'll appreciate it in the moment. But I would rather have a friend temporarily annoyed with me because I cared too much than spend the rest of my life wishing I had cared a little more. That's a personal choice every one of us has to make. None of us can control another person's decisions, but we can control the kind of friend we choose to be. The phrase "no man left behind" has stayed with me throughout this conversation. Most people recognize it because of its military roots, but I think the heart behind those words speaks to all of us. It's about commitment, it's about loyalty, it's about refusing to become indifferent, it's about making sure people know they matter. No, friendship doesn't mean we can prevent every tragedy or every bad decision. It doesn't mean we're responsible for every choice another adult makes. But perhaps it does mean we refuse to stop caring. Perhaps it means we become the friend who notices when someone doesn't answer, the friend who circles back, the friend who waits for the text that says, I made it home, the friend who calls instead of assuming someone else already has. As I thought about everything we've discussed today, I realized this episode really isn't about one evening out with friends. It's about the kind of world we want to help create. Do we want to live in communities where everyone simply looks after themselves? Or do we want to build friendships where people genuinely notice one another? Because I don't think those small acts of care are small at all. They communicate value, they communicate love. They communicate, your life matters enough for me to pay attention. And maybe that's something we all need a little more of. When the music stops, when the restaurant closes, when the game ends, when the concert is over, when the vacation comes to an end, when everyone begins heading home, that's when friendship quietly asks its biggest question. Who notices? Who remembers? Who waits? Who checks? Who says, "Send me a text when you get home," and actually waits for the message? Who makes one more phone call when the message never comes? Those moments may never make the news. They may never be posted online. No one may ever know they happened. But I believe those ordinary moments are where extraordinary friendships are built. Maybe No Man Left Behind isn't really about making sure everyone leaves together every single time. Maybe it's about making sure no one ever feels forgotten. Maybe it's about refusing to let indifference replace compassion. Maybe it's about creating friendships where people know someone will notice if they're missing. Because at the end of the day, every one of us wants to know that if life takes an unexpected turn, someone cared enough to look for us. And perhaps that's the real responsibility of friendship, not controlling another person's life, not carrying responsibility for every decision they make, but loving them enough that they never have to wonder whether anyone cared. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give the people we call friends isn't another fun night out. Sometimes it's the quiet reassurance that says, "I noticed, I checked, and I care." Well, Jules. Our oxygen tanks are getting low, which means it's time for us to begin our ascent. Thank you for diving beneath the surface with me for another episode of the Fishbowl with Jade. If today's conversation made you think, challenged your perspective, or reminded you of someone who needs to hear it, don't keep it to yourself. Share the episode and invite someone else to sit in the bowl with us. You can stream the Fishbowl with Jade on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Good Pods, YouTube, and wherever you enjoy podcasts. Thank you for your continued support and for helping us build a community where curiosity is welcomed, conversations are meaningful, and different perspectives have a seat at the table.